for the Michael Culture Association, and I will moderate this 2-hour training session. First of all, just a couple of minutes, I will present the Michael Culture Association, which is a European trans-domain organization devoted to European digital cultural heritage, from aggregation, protection, preservation, valorization, and reuse. And we support digital cultural heritage communities. We gather a strong network of more than 100 public and private organizations from all over Europe, and we are part of important European network dealing with cultural heritage and digital cultural heritage. And moreover, we are part of the Europeana ecosystem, and with Museo, we are one of the trusted aggregators of Europeana, and we help museums and other cultural institutions. And so, in the framework of the Europeana initiative, we have organized the two-day workshop on Wikidata, which, as you know, is a free and open knowledge base that can be read and edited by both humans and machines. As you know, Wikidata is free, collaborative, and multilingual, and it collects structured data to support the other wikis of the Wikimedia movement and many other initiatives at the global level. In this training webinar, which is recorded and will be made available in our channels, you will have the possibility to follow a basic introduction on Wikidata, on its evolution, relationships with the Wikipedia and Wikipedia, how to create a new item, etc. But before the training session, we are presenting 3 practical cases of the use of Wikidata in which the Michael Culture Association is involved. So, first of all, I will give the floor to Pier Giacomo Sola, my colleague in the Michael Culture Association, which is expert in design, coordination, evaluation, and technical assistance of complex transnational projects in the educational, cultural, innovation management, and regional socioeconomic development fields. He has really coordinated and contributed to over 100 research projects and studies in culture and education. And today he will speak about, make a presentation about creating dedicated terminologies for education, starting from Wikidata in the CrowdSchool Project. So the floor to you, Pier Giacomo.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. I already informed my colleagues. At the moment, I am at the airport waiting for. So if by chance there are some noise, I'm sorry, I cannot manage. And if by chance you see me standing up and around, it means that my flight has been announced. So I will share my screen. And as Maria Teresa already mentioned, I will talk about the CrowdSchool Project, a project where the Michael Culture Association is currently involved. And the origin of the CrowdSchool Project comes from the Crowd Heritage platform that has been created together with the National Technical University of Athens that is hosting the platform. Later on, you will also listen to Eirini that will talk about the activities they are running in Athens. The Crowd Heritage platform is an online tool that is used to create a crowdsourcing exercise to improve the quality of metadata of Europeana. We have been involved as a Michael Culture Association in the development in 2018. And of course, we were so interested in the potential of the Crowd Heritage platform that in September 2020, we started the CrowdSchool project. That means how to use the potential of the annotation that is provided by the CrowdSchool platform within an educational context. Of course, moving from the need to enrich, simply enrich metadata, to enrich metadata, but in the same time creating an educational tool means a different approach in the management of the collection, because first of all, the objective of the CrowdSchool is enhancing school with new interactive methods for increasing the creative thinking skills of the students, and of course, taking benefit of the potential present in Europeana. On the other side, Europeana, but also other digital repositories, we are not just focusing on Europeana. On the other way, of course, there is also the opportunity to increase the crowd heritage system in order to apply a STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics model in education, and to support the acquisition of critical thinking and dialogical approach for guiding the students' inquiry. What is the methodology that we are using CrowdSchool? First of all, we need to start from the actual training needs of the students and their teachers. So first of all, the teacher have selected some themes of their interest according to the mission of their school or the program that they have in the partner countries. We're working in France, Italy, Spain, and Poland. There are 4 countries and 4 schools that are participating in the project, and each of them is twinned by an organization with a cultural expertise in order to create this binôme, education and culture together. So these cultural professionals that are working with the school have supported the identification of the digital collections that are more interesting for preparing lessons, research, and workshops focusing on the thematics that has been selected by the schools. The 2 teams work together and also organize the terminology to describe the collection for this specific theme. And the terminology, of course, must be also translated at least into the 4 languages of the partner countries, plus English, which is the language that is the lingua franca of the project. Finally, the students started the annotation campaign and enrich the educational content of a collection, of course, starting from the collection that are connecting with the themes that is more directly related to their study and to their profile. The annotations that are done by the students are revised by other classes in other countries in such a way there is not only, let's say, the effort of being creative in order to identify what are the most adequate terms that can really enrich the content of the collection, but on the other way, there are also the capacity of be critical with respect to the work that has been done by the other students. And of course, you see that the role of terminology is very important because it's the medium that allow us to have a real transnational cooperation, because without a translated terminology, everybody would input any kind of terms without having a structured language, and of course the translation and adaptation from the different countries would be much more difficult. The collections selected by the partner schools are food and fashion for the school in Italy, cities and landscape, and the Olympic spirit in France. The Olympic spirit comes from the issue that the school is located where the Olympic Games will take place in 2024. In Poland, architecture, landscape and gardens are the 2 themes. while on the contrary, the primary school in Spain has selected musical instrument, the architecture of Gaudí in Barcelona, food, and endangered species. And here, an example of how Wikidata has been used in order to create a terminology. I just presented the example of the terminology about food. Of course, is in alphabetical order, and animal food does not mean that I don't prefer vegetarian, but let's say this is just a matter of fact. You see that there are different levels: food, animal food. The third level is red meat, white meats, and so on. And then going on, we arrive to the different levels of details in order to facilitate the identification. We have the different terms in English, that is reference, in French, Italian, Spanish. There is also a further column in Greek. And of course, what is very important is the reference to the Wikidata page associated to this term. The same has been done for the other collection. And of course, this work has been done in the first year of activity because is definitely preliminary in order to allow the students to have a platform where all the different terms has been already created and associated to the different languages. This is another example, and of course, our activity connected with Wikidata concerns the need of new translation, the improvement of description, the addition of new terms, and of course, all this work has been done, first of all, for our needs to create something that was directly useful for the CrowdSchool project, but at the end of the day, I'm sure that provides also a very useful contribution to the overall Wikidata community. I guess that my 8 minutes are over.
Okay, thank you. No, we don't hear you. We don't hear you anymore.
Sorry, there was a... So thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, please refer today or in the next days.
Thank you,
very
Pier
much.
Giacomo. So as you can see, it's a very artisanal way of working, but it is successful, and we used the same approach also in the EuropeanaCrafted project, where we created the terminology of more than 800 terms, which helped us to enrich Wikidata. So now, of course, if there are questions, you can put them in the question and in the chat, and then we will answer at the end of the session. So our second speaker is Vesna Plantic. She is working in the Museum of Art and Crafts of Zagreb. She is an art historian, head of the collection departments, and curator of the clocks and watches collection in the museum. And she participated in a lot of European projects connected to the Europeana ecosystem, and not only. And Vesna, which is a beginner in Wikidata, will speak about Wikidata as a complementary tool for enriching metadata of authors and producers. So the floor to you, Vesna.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen right away. To see. Is it okay?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to speak a bit about the project we participate in. It's the Crafted project. It started in last September and will last for another year. We are one of the partners, and the coordinator is National Technical University of Athens. Just a brief, we've delivered so far to Europeana about 55,000 records. And in this project, in the crafted projects, we try to provide another 3,000 records. Half of them are already on Europeana, and they are going to be enriched, and we'll have them free reused. But we are also going to provide about 1,500 new high-quality records. It concerns mostly of the 19th century atelier photographs, the so-called carte de visite format. The problem with the records we have so far on Europeana is that they are in copyright, and that provides a lot of problems because they can't be reused for, let's say, various digital exhibitions, galleries, blogs, and so on. So we aim to achieve tier 4, and in some cases, not many, tier 3. So this is the list of the objects. They vary from all kinds of metalworks, furniture, and clocks and watches, photographs, and so on. Most of them, as you can see, have the license public domain, so they can be freely reused. Just few of them, and that concerns the contemporary, let's say, fashion. And some new tapestries are like in CC by NCSA, but it's like 5% of them. So the enrichment, the main topic. We will do the enrichment of our records, but we'll focus mostly on the authors and producers segment. And our IT expert, he extracted from our digital repository almost 600 authors and producers concerning the present project, the crafted project. So almost 600 of them. The problem is that they are mostly craftsmen. That they don't have items in Wikidata or in VIAF, and more to that they are mostly, not all of them, Croatian, work in Croatia, so that's the problem. So we have names of the authors in Excel tables, then links in Wikidata and links in VIAF, and then one column where I put the info about the author, and some other links, like I found some of them in WikiWatch or some others. And now I'll just try to point some of the examples. Let's say for Peter van den Hake. He is a renowned Flemish tapestry weaver and designer. He lived in the 17th, 18th century. So of course, we can find him in Wikidata and VIAF. But also, I tried to do something on this. So I put the translation into Croatian, and also add references that refer to our repository, where you can find his works. The much different thing is about, let's say, Anton Lepen, who is a shoemaker who lives in Zagreb, and of course we can't find him neither in Wikidata nor in VIAF. But I found his website, Google, and I used those data that I found out, and did the new item in Wikidata. So I registered so I can provide new items and I can edit the existing items. So I did for him the new item, and this is his website. And there are some interesting things, let's say, about like Bauer. It's a photographer, and in our collection we have a photograph or several photographs that are signed Bauer here. We didn't know his name, but then I found in an address book of Wiener photographs his name, and I know that's the same photographer because of the back page and the place he worked and so on. So it's a help also for us to add his first name. And then also I created an item in Wikidata about Johann Bauer, because he also didn't have, it was not published in Wikidata. And I added things I know. I must keep on learning and try to add something more and something better, but I'm just a beginner, as Maria Teresa said. And also, we had a Bauer L, also photographer. Also, we had only L for his name. And I found, comparing the back side of the photographs from our museum, from our collection, and the back side of the photographs from the album of Viennese photographers, that are identical, the same address and the same design. So also I now know that it's Louis Bauer, and that that's the author of our photographs. And in Wikidata, I just found Louis Bauer, but with no other descriptions or anything about him. So I created the item with description about him, what his profession was, where he was active, and so on. I did it as every item in English and in Croatian, and added where his works are, and so that's it. Thank you. I hope I'll carry on.
Okay, thank you, Vesna. I think that this work is really useful. It's not only useful for the enrichment of Europeana, but it is useful for the community of interested people. And let's hope that other people will add more information and more translation in the new pages you opened in Wikidata. And now I will give the floor to a more technical speech. I will give the floor to Eirini Kaldeli, which is a senior researcher at the Artificial Intelligence and Learning System Laboratory of the National Technical University of Athens. Her most recent work focuses on the development of methods and tools that make use of cutting-edge digital technologies for data management, enrichment, crowdsourcing, and engagement in the field of cultural heritage. And she has worked as a an expert in many European projects, and we are also partner in several of them. And Eirini will speak about metadata enrichment by linking with Wikidata in EuropeanaCrafted.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to give this presentation. Let me start by sharing my screen. Let's see how this works. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I will also speak about the crafted projects and its contribution and relation and how it uses Wikidata. So Vesna covered a kind of contribution that focuses on enriching the Wikidata knowledge base itself with adding new terms, new knowledge to it. I will focus on another angle and contribution of the crafted projects that makes use of artificial intelligence tools to automatically enrich culture heritage metadata records and link them with terms from Wikidata. So we'll focus on how we leverage Wikidata knowledge to enrich in an automatic way culture heritage metadata records, while Vesna described a manual way of enriching metadata records, which of course involves more, let's say, in-depth knowledge that can not be substituted by AI methods. But on the other hand, artificial intelligence tools can help us to streamline, facilitate, and apply enrichments at a much larger scale, even if not, even if they lack in terms of accuracy. This is why human validation of automatic enrichments is of paramount importance. And this is also part of the methodology followed by the crafted project. So let me directly focus on the artificial intelligence tools and the kind of analysis, of automatic analysis we're performing in crafted. I will skip this overview of the overall crafted objective and the partners. These were already covered by Vesna. And move on with the methodology we are following and the tools we are using. We are performing, generally speaking, two kinds of analysis. We analyze content, which amounts basically to images and videos. And we also analyze text, unstructured, let's say, textual descriptions within the metadata records. So for the content analysis part, we, for example, extract colors from images. Partner Datable is responsible for this part of the work. Also, the tools perform image tagging. They identify, recognize objects depicted on the images, and also perform optical character recognitions, which can, let's say, identify, analyze labels, for example, referring to brands, creator names inscripted on some items, and translate them to textual strings. And then also we perform speech to text for videos. The semantic analysis tool analyze text in metadata records with the aim to identify certain strings that refer to concepts of interest to and entities of interest to craft's heritage, and link them with terms from controlled vocabularies and linked open data sets, such as Wikidata. And I will explain why Wikidata is, let's say, the central knowledge base that we're using in this project. And we are using the SAGE platform for semantic annotations and generation of enrichment for this part of the semantic analysis. It's a tool developed by the National Technical University of Athens, which provides a number of services that can be applied to enrich data depending on the specific needs of the provider, the characteristics of the data, and so on. So, okay, as I already described, the first contribution of the project is that we enrich Wikidata with new terms, and this was covered by Vesna. But let me focus on the different ways in which we use Wikidata to enrich in an automatic way our metadata records. So via the SAGE tool, you can communicate with Wikidata via the Sparkle endpoint exposed by the Wikidata knowledge base. What does this mean? Wikidata is a huge knowledge base. It's very difficult to download all the knowledge in a dump file. This requires a huge amount of space, and also it's difficult to query it with adequate performance. And therefore, it's also one other limitation related with downloading Wikidata and keeping a local copy of it is related to synchronization issues. How do you ensure that the terms added by Vesna will be taken into account? You have to update it periodically. So this is not exactly the best approach to download Wikidata and maintain it locally. This is why we use an endpoint, a service offered by Wikidata, which allows you to perform queries on this knowledge base using the SparkQL query language. So what we do is we extract the normal forms of strings that we find by parsing the text in the metadata, and we formulate a SparkQL query to fetch the right URI, the right term from Wikidata. So this is an example for that describes how the SparkQL annotator service of Sage works. So let's say the DC creator, that's a particular property included in the EuropeanaData model representation of culture heritage metadata records, has a value that says Badalamenti, comma, Angelo, and then in a parenthesis, Andy. That's surname, first name. So this has to be transformed into a normal canonical form that allows us then to query Wikidata and get an answer, and the URI on the right, which we can then add as an enrichment to the metadata record. So then the second service, the second way of enriching metadata records is through an algorithm that performs named entity recognition and disambiguation. In this case, this algorithm also takes into consideration the contextual information around a string and is able to detect persons, places, and organizations and link them with Wikidata. There are many different algorithms already pre-trained on Wikidata. And we are making use of such a pre-trained algorithm. So let me again give an example. You have, let's say, continual text, longer text than just a name. And the first step of the nerd annotator is that it is able to identify the strings that most likely refer to organizations, places, or names. And then you perform the second step, which is this disambiguation step, in order to find to which term most probably this string refers to from Wikidata. And again, you can take advantage of the SparkQL endpoint exposed by Wikidata to find, to retrieve the right URIs. Of course, besides Wikidata, there are more domain-specific vocabularies that we're using for enrichment, because either because providers are have developed customized vocabularies that best describe their domain, or because some aspects are not covered actually by Wikidata. But let me say that most of the domain-specific vocabularies do have links and matches with Wikidata. And this is something that is actively encouraged and recommended also by Europeana, that vocabularies, domain-specific vocabularies developed by providers should, if possible, be matched, be aligned with Wikidata terms. In this case, in this third kind of service, what we do is we apply lemmatization and then string matching on both the original descriptive metadata and on the vocabulary, because in this case, we are able to do this because we have a local copy of the vocabularies, and this allows us to do smarter things, let's say, and possible taxonomies that, if used by the vocabulary, in order to find the right URI vocabulary term that best matches an identified string, a concept, which could, for example, be a material, a technique, or so on. And then this is dereferenced by the Europeana platform, this URI, this term from the vocabulary. And Europeana actually uses Wikidata as a pivot knowledge base. Because if all vocabularies are aligned with Wikidata, then Wikidata can act as the common knowledge, the common language, let's say, across different vocabularies. And this is very much encouraged, as I already said, by Europeana. So this slide describes an example of this string matching approach, the thesaurus annotator, which is indirectly linked with Wikidata. And then after the automatic processing and enrichment is performed, as I said, the accuracy of automatic algorithms is not as perfect as manual human assessment. So we combine the power of artificial intelligence with human intelligence, and we are using different tools that allow end users, humans, to validate and evaluate the automatic enrichments. We are using the Crowd Heritage platform that was already presented by Pier Giacomo in order to perform this kind of human evaluation and validation. And via the Crowd Heritage platform, participants inspect the automatic enrichments and can upvote or downvote them. And also Crowd Heritage, this validation phase, besides allowing us to improve the accuracy of the end results, that means to filter out the less accurate automatic results, it also allows us to improve the performance of the automatic algorithms, because they offer us valuable insights so as to tweak the algorithms and make them be more accurate, give better results. And lastly, this validation phase also acts as a means of engagement for end users, and it also allows them to get familiarized with Wikidata and learn why they are important. So to conclude, the Crafted projects first contributes to and extends Wikidata knowledge via manual work, and Wikidata is also used for the manual enrichment of metadata records. Wikidata is leveraged by artificial intelligence tools to apply automatic enrichments in different way. And lastly, these enrichments are published to the Europeana platform, which takes advantage of them, dereferences them in the context of the Europeana entity collection approach, which allows Europeana platform to improve the platform's search capabilities, multilinguality, because of course Wikidata terms are multilingual, and also provide richer knowledge about cultural heritage items via the interrelations that one can deduce via Wikidata terms. So that's it. I hope it didn't take too long. Thank you for your attention. And of course, if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Eirini, for this very interesting presentation. And again, I tell you, if there are questions, you can put in the chat, even during the rest of the meeting. And now we have finished the first session, and we will begin with the training session, which is longer, and it will be carried out by Camillo Pellizzari, who is a graduate student of classics at the University of Pisa and at the Scuola Normale Superiore. Even if he's very young, he is a Wikimedian since 2012 and currently is among the administrators of Wikidata and Italian Wikipedia. He is also co-founder of the Wikidata group for museum, archives, and libraries, supported by the Department of Musicology and Cultural Heritage of the University of Pavia. But I really can say that Camillo is one of the biggest experts of Wikidata in Italy, at least. And now he will begin with the training session on Wikidata, and also he will speak about useful tools to work on Wikidata. I mean, Wikidata would need longer training. This is really a basic training, but it is more than enough just to begin, and then there will be time for further improvement and in-depth sessions. So I give you the floor, Camillo.
Thanks. So I sent also in the chat the list of the links I will show, and now I share my screen, and you should see it. So this is the link I sent in the chat, and now I will start showing most of the links you see in this section. Basically, I will start with an introduction about the history of Wikidata, its use on Wikipedia, how is a Wikidata item structured, some tools for visualizing data, also some examples of websites using Wikidata's data in themselves, and then also something about Sparkle queries, which have also been mentioned by Eirini, and something about editing Wikidata, and also ways for normal users to edit Wikidata in a more comfortable way. So I will probably end with this and with some little demonstration of the use of these tools. So the main page of Wikidata, if you are not logged in in an account, is basically this. You see that you are not logged in. If you are not logged in, the only interface language available is English, and you see welcome to Wikidata, the free knowledge base with we are nearly reaching 100,000 million items. So in less than 10 years, Wikidata was born on the 29th of October 2012. So in less than 10 years, we are nearly reaching 100,000 million items. And then you see in the main page some basic information about Wikidata, which is the central storage of structured data of the Wikimedia sister projects. The most famous is, of course, Wikipedia, and also other projects you may or may not know. They are all listed here. At the end of the page, you see the list of the Wikimedia projects starting from Wikipedia. So, if you are logged in, you see Wikidata in this way. You see your username here, then some other links. We will probably discuss some of them. The preferences are the place where you can somehow personalize your interface in many ways. In the contributions, you can see all the edits you have done of course, all the edits you have done when you are logged in. So here I can see the last edits I did today, as you can see. These are edits from today. And also the talk page is the page where other users send you messages inside Wikidata regarding different issues, something you are doing well, something you are doing not well. So it is the main place where you communicate with the different users and so on. So let's talk about why Wikidata was born. As you know, before Wikidata, there was only Wikipedia. The first of the Wikimedia projects was Wikipedia, which was born more than 20 years ago, on the 15th of January 2001, originally only in English, but after a few months, other versions of Wikipedia were born, and these versions became fastly some tens and then also some hundreds, and now they are more than 300. Here you can see them ordered basically by dimension. And so it could well happen that a topic, let's say a city like Roma, was present in different Wikipedias at the same time. So here there is the page of Italian Wikipedia about Rome, and if I go down, you can see in other languages, and here is the list of all the Wikipedias having a page about Rome. I will not scroll it down to the end, but they are clearly some 100 or 200, because of course Rome is an article which is common to many Wikipedias. And so, in fact, a lot of these Wikipedias share, for example, in their layout, a characteristic which is one of the most iconic of Wikipedia, the info boxes. So if you have read a lot of Wikipedia pages, but also a few, you may have noticed that a lot of them have here on the right for languages which are written from left to right, or you could say on the left for languages that are written in another way. If I see Arabic, you will see that the info box is on the other side of the page. If it loads, I will show you. I hope my connection, no. In Arabic it is also on the right, but I think that in some languages it is on the left. Anyway, the info boxes are a way to show in a structured way some basic information about a subject. They are typically used for places, also for events such as sports events, elections, sometimes also for people. So an info box shows some data. Some of them are stable. For example, the fact that Rome is in Italy is quite stable. Also, its coordinates are probably stable, and its altitude above the sea. Other pieces of data are not stable. For example, its inhabitants are something that changes in time. Also, the mayor changes in time, and so on. So, if a lot of Wikipedias, some tens, some hundreds of Wikipedias, have an article about Rome, they will probably have a lot of data, at least basic data, in common, and it is clear that having different users in different languages updating this data separately is a big loss of time, and also it may lead to let's say smaller Wikipedias, or at least Wikipedias which are somehow less interested in a topic like Rome, have data which become obsolete because users interested in updating them are somehow rare, and so data become outdated. So Wikidata, and also we can say another thing which is still more basic. So here are two images, two couples of images, which were used a lot when Wikidata was in its first months of life. I became a Wikipedia user in December 2012, and Wikidata was born in October 2012. So when I was writing my first articles on Wikipedia, I saw these couple of images which tried to explain to Wikipedia users why Wikidata was created and how it could make life easier for Wikipedia users. And the second couple of images tries to show what I explained in the last minutes. So in the image on the left, you see the different Wikipedias represented by red circles, which have these pieces of information represented in green, where the light green is shows the information which is up to date, while the other shade of green represents outdated information. So when different Wikipedias manage these pieces of information, in some cases they may become outdated. While if we have the central blue circle, which is Wikidata, having the up-to-date information, all Wikipedias can, at least in principle, read information from Wikidata. And so one update of information made on Wikidata is valid for all the Wikipedias. So less toil to update the data, and on the other side, all the Wikipedias can have up-to-date information thanks to Wikidata. This is the usefulness of Wikidata regarding the management of data which change in time. Also, a more basic thing for which Wikidata is useful is that before Wikidata, in order to have these interlinks, which we call interwikis, between different Wikipedias, each Wikipedia article had to write inside itself that the other Wikipedia articles existed. And so when a new Wikipedia article was created, all the other Wikipedias had to be edited in order to add the information that another Wikipedia article existed. Now, all the links between different Wikipedias are registered in Wikidata. And so if another Wikipedia article is created, I edit the central point, which is Wikidata, and all the other Wikipedias will immediately know it. So Wikidata centralizes the management of information which were previously managed separately by different Wikipedias, and in doing so, it makes the work that different Wikipedians in different languages should do much easier. So this is why Wikipedia needed Wikidata. It needed it from its first years of existence, but programming Wikidata was not so easy. And so after 11 years of Wikipedia's life, Wikidata was born. Now, let's see how effectively the data from Wikidata are used. Let's see an example with a person. This is a Wikipedia article for a person, Domenico Comparetti. As you can see, the Italian Wikipedia, which I am now reading, has a very small info box, but we can see different examples of info boxes reading data from Wikidata. For example, here we have Wikipedia in Russian, and Wikipedia in Russian uses many pieces of data from Wikidata. You can also see this little d. This little d is often used in different Wikipedias in order to make it clear that a piece of data comes from Wikidata. We can also see an example in Wikipedia in Norwegian. Wikipedia in Norwegian also uses data from Wikidata, as you can see in this rich info box. Another way to make it clear that a piece of data comes from Wikidata is this little pencil that you see also here. This little pencil is another way used in different Wikipedias to mark data from Wikidata. Also, this one, Hentet fra Wikidata, I don't know if I pronounced it well, probably not. But in all these cases, you see that different Wikipedias use Wikidata in different ways. They may choose to use it more extensively or in a more reduced way, but usually they use it in some way. And you see that data are easily translated in Norse, in Norwegian, or in Russian, or also in other languages. Maybe Spanish Spanish has no info box. Let's try French. Probably French has one, yes. Also French Wikipedia has an info box, but this probably doesn't come from Wikidata, as you don't see any notice of it. So, as you can see, Wikipedias can also choose not to use Wikidata in some cases. We have seen that Wikidata is used for factual information. So, if we go back to Norwegian, not Russian, but Norwegian, which is here, you can see that these are biographical information, such as the birth date and the place, and the death date and place, with their references. But Wikidata is used also for another type of information, which is connection with different databases. This is the so-called authority control, authority data. So the connection with the main authority files from national libraries, such as GND from Germany, the Library of Congress, Bibliothèque Nationale de France, and so on. And this is quite constant in different Wikipedias. So here you see it in Norwegian, but there is also in Russian with a different layout. As you can see, this is the authority control box in Russian, and we also have it in Italian, as you can see here. Here there is the authority control box in Italian. So now we will see how a Wikidata item is structured. And this is an example of Wikidata item. This is the Wikidata item from which the information we have just seen in different Wikipedia articles come. But maybe we can see how we can enter in the Wikidata item from Wikipedia. So let's come back a little. I go to English Wikipedia as an example. This is the English Wikipedia article about Domenico Paretti. In the left side, you see a column of links, and one of them is Wikidata item. So this link Wikidata item is present in all the Wikipedias. We can also see it in German, for example. It is here, Wikidata, data and object, and it is present in all different Wikipedias. So you can just search in the page Wikidata, and you will probably find it unless Wikidata is written in a different script. In that case, you may have to search for Wikidata, but written in the Arabic or Greek or Cyrillic script and so on. So let's go back to the Wikidata item. A Wikidata item has 4 parts. These 4 parts have different features that we will briefly see. So, a Wikidata item is identified by the letter Q followed by a number. This number, as you may guess, is increasingly high as new items are created. So this item is 1 million and something. Given that now Wikidata has more than 97 million of items, this is a pretty ancient item. This was created in the first years of Wikidata's life. And you also see this identifier in the URL. The first part of the item, the first part of the item is this box. This box, you can see, has different languages in the rows, and the columns are named label, description, and also known as, which is also called alias. The label is the preferred form of the name of this entity, in this case of this person, which is chosen in a given language. In the case of modern people, the name is usually the same in languages sharing the same script, but if we enlarge the number of languages chosen, you can see that, for example, in Arabic script or in Cyrillic script or in Chinese, of course, the name is different. If we choose a person which is, for example, an ancient author, like Hesychius of Jerusalem, which is another interesting example, you can see that the name is pretty different also in languages sharing the same script, because the names are reciprocally translations, and so Hesychius of Jerusalem, Ezequiel de Jerusalem, Hesychius Hierosolimitanus, Ezekiel di Jerusalem, and so on. This is also true if I search for a concept. So if I search for life, which is life, Leben, Zoe, Vida, Vita, and so on. So in many cases, having this differentiation between different languages is fundamental, of course. So labels are the preferred form of the name in a given language. The description is meant to give an approximate idea of what the item is about. So, for example, Domenico Comparetti was an Italian classical scholar. Without a description, we could also think that Domenico Comparetti is the name of a book, for example. So the description is meant to give some understanding of what the item is about, and also to disambiguate homonym people. This is not the case of Domenico Comparetti, which is not a common name, so you can see that he is the only one, but if we search, for example, for Domenico Rossi, we may find more of them, and so the description is important for giving us some understanding of these different people. The aliases, of course, give different forms of the name for this concept, which are present in at least one source, but are not preferred because the most sources use a different form, and so the most used form is the label, and the other forms are the aliases. This is the first part of the item, which, as you see, is divided between different languages. The other parts of the item are multilingual in the sense that you see them in English because my interface language is in English, but if I change my interface language to, let's say, French, the item will reload, and you will see, of course, the names of the languages in French, but also you will see, let's close this part of the item for now. You will see all the parts of the item in French. Let's now turn back to English, which is probably more widely understood in this occasion. So I usually use Wikidata in Italian, just for, I suggest, some people prefer to use Wikidata with the interface in English. I tend to prefer using it with my native language. So the statements are the second part of the item. They provide structured data about the described subject. Of course, this subject is a human. We have an image, sex or gender, male, other information, the given names, as you can see, the family name. We can also see different birth dates. Wikidata allows to register, to store also diverging data. Of course, this person wasn't born 2 times, but different sources have a different birth date for him, and so I can say that this birth date is in one source, and this birth date is in 2 sources, and this is probably the motivation for which this is the preferred form of this piece of data. So I can register different diverging information, and I can rank them. This feature is named rank. It's used quite a few times, but in many cases it is very important. For example, when you work on ancient authors, their dates of activity can diverge a lot between different sources, and so you can register different sources and rank them according to how many of them, how authoritative they are, and so on. So references are of course a very important part of Wikidata. All statements can have one or more references. Of course, obvious statements may not have references. It is, I think, quite obvious that the surname of Domenico Comparetti is Comparetti, but of course, it is not obvious that he was born on this date or on this other date, and so for most information, having one reference, and I would say also more than one reference is possible, is very important. Let's scroll down these statements. As you can see, they are all factual data about this entity. Of course, I am showing an item about a human, but it could also be an item about a concept or so on. Let's also skip these for the moment, also these. And the things I am skipping are personalizations of my interface, about which I will say something at the end of my presentation. And so we go to the third part of this item, which is identifiers. As we said previously, the data Wikidata stores are basically of two, or we may say three types. The first type is the data which are different between different languages, and so labels, descriptions, and aliases, which are divided by different languages. Then we have factual data, which are stored in the statements. And then we have connections between Wikidata and other databases, which are stored in identifiers. The identifiers look exactly as the statements. In fact, the identifiers are a specific type of statements. They are statements which don't say something factual about the described subject, but they say something about this subject being also described by other databases, which can be VIAF, which most of you will probably know, which collects the data from a lot of authority files around the world, and also Wikidata. As you can see, also Wikidata is a source for VIAF. Then we see also the authority files which are VIAF members, such as the Vatican Library, Biblioteca Nacional de España, Bibliothèque Nationale de France, and so on. Let's scroll down a bit. And then we also see other types of identifiers. For example, some academies, some learned societies have pages for their members or past members, and so we can link to them. Some smaller libraries can have authority files describing the authors of the books in their collections. And also biographical dictionaries are a very valuable source also for Wikidata's data, and also encyclopedias, as you can see. And also we should have some websites of political institutions. For example, if a person was a member of the Senate or of the Chamber of Deputies of a country, he or she will probably be described by this institution. And also we have a lot of other types of identifiers which make the richness of Wikidata. As we said, Wikidata links to very different databases, and this is also its force, because it allows to see also the different aspects of let's say a person, but also an event, a place, and these aspects are evident both from the factual data in the statements and from the identifiers in this section. And let's finally scroll down to the last part of the item, which is predictable. It contains the links to different Wikipedias, as you can see, and also other Wikimedia projects, in this case Wikisource, which have a page about the described subject. And so here we end the presentation of the structure of an item. We can maybe stop a few seconds if there are questions in the chat. Are there questions in the chat? I don't see it when I'm sharing my screen.
No, at the moment we don't have questions.
Okay.
But it was everything was very clear, I think.
Perfect. So maybe I also said something which was at least partially known for many members of the public. So let's go on. We are now, let's say, here at visualizing data, and let's close something. So some examples of data visualization. One of the best examples, because they are quite iconic, let's say, are genealogical trees. This is one example, but there are also other forms of genealogical trees. This is for Charles V of Spain, and you are seeing it with the names of Charles V and his ancestors in Italian, because here in the URL I've chosen Italian, but I can choose Japanese, and it will magically reload in Japanese, because, as we said, Wikidata distinguishes labels in different languages, and so we can see these persons with the labels in Japanese, and then I can click on one of them, let's say this, and the genealogical tree will reload starting from this person up to her third generation of ancestors. It reloads in English, but I can well change it through the URL, let's say, to French, and it will reload in French, as you see. So this is one example of genealogical tree. Another example of genealogical tree is this one, which allows also closing parts so collapsing parts or expanding parts. This is the person on which it is centered. This allows to go both to the sons and to the parents, so in both directions. It shows also the wife or husband, as you can see. It shows also yes, it shows also the brothers maybe not, but at least it shows the husband or wife. It shows some also the description. As you see, it shows not only the label but also the description, and also these, of course, can be switched to another languages. You are seeing it in Italian. This is I think a bit more flexible than the other one, but of course it is I think a good demonstration of the fact that once you have put data, good data, into Wikidata, then visualizing data is just a matter of finding the right tool, or if you don't find it, programming it, or finding someone who will program it for you, which is probably the most common option, and it can lead to very interesting results. Then, after genealogical trees, we will see a little example of generating readable text from Wikidata. Of course, we are speaking about, let's say, very basic written text, but it is something interesting. Of course, there is some ongoing work about the possibilities of generating also more complex text from Wikidata, text which should be also automatically translatable between different languages. As of now, we only have this little example for English. It doesn't work in other languages, but if you are interested in this matter, there is a project which is being created, which is named Abstract Wikipedia. Abstract Wikipedia has a small Wikipedia page, and more can be seen here at this page of MetaWiki, which has a lot of information about its development and so on. It will be fully online in a few years, I think. It has also a newsletter, so if you're interested, you can see the timeline and so on in this page on MetaWiki. So anyway, you see in this page not only this example of generation of readable language from Wikidata's data, but also somehow a reorganization of the data in Wikidata in a way which is a bit different from how Wikidata presents it in its items, and it can be interesting. For example, in this case, all the identifiers are presented in alphabetical order, and so on. So this is another example of how to present Wikidata's data with a bit different layout. Now I would also like to show this, which is a browser extension which was created recently during the first lockdown, I think, in Australia by Toby Hudson. This is a browser extension which is available both for Chrome and for Firefox. You see it also here. I have enabled it, and let's see how it works. So I will go back to Domenico Comparetti, let's say to the Italian article, and I go to, let's say, BNF, to the authority file of the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, and then being here, you see that this icon is red, and this means that this page I am visiting on the internet is linked from Wikidata. So this browser extension, Entity Explosion, retrieves the API of Wikidata and is able to show me the data of Wikidata in Italian, as you see, but also in a different language. So I can convert it to Greek, for example, and we have the data in Greek, as you can see. Or I can convert it to another language. I can return basically to Italian, and the data are shown in Italian. You see both the factual data, so the statements. You see, of course, the link to the Wikidata item, and in this case to Italian Wikipedia, since it exists. And you also see the other identifiers. And so I can jump from this web page to another web page. Let's say, for example, the Biographical Dictionary of Italian People, which is this page. And I have jumped here through Wikidata. So this is very useful in order to navigate different pages in the internet related to the same subject, reaching them through Wikidata also if you didn't know about their existence. So it is a very interesting application of Wikidata, probably also one of the most praised and popular And it is another demonstration of the importance of having good data on Wikidata, both factual data and identifiers. So they are both very important parts of Wikidata item. We can also see, in order to enable this browser extension, you can basically follow these very simple instructions, and it will be very easy for you to enable it. So let's see also uses of Wikidata embedded in external websites. I have two examples from Italy, from Italian libraries. This is one example from a group of libraries near Turin in northern Italy. And you see a lot of information about Domenico Comparetti. And if I click, I think not here, you can also see these informations in triples, which is probably interesting for only a few people. But you can also show, okay, clicking on this E of information, you see that all these parts of the page which are surrounded by this yellow line are from external sources. So these informations are not natively stored in the COBIS, in this database, but are read from elsewhere, and specifically they are read from Wikidata, apart from this, which is the incipit, the first phrase of the Italian Wikipedia article about Comparetti, and this is read from Wikipedia. But all the other information are read from Wikidata. And let's see another example. So this is let's say a rare example of the use of bibliographic data from libraries in order to create a linked open data platform, but also inside of a more traditional library catalog. This is the library catalog of the Pontificia Università della Santa Croce in Rome. Here we have a bibliographic record about a book written by Domenico Comparetti. And you see in this part of the page named Authority Box a few data, just the birth and death date, the description, the language in which he wrote, and the links to different Wikipedias for both the author of the work and the curator, Giorgio Pasquali. You see also the information about Giorgio Pasquali. So also inside the more traditional library catalog, the information from Wikidata can be displayed in order to give to the reader some more hints about who are the authors of the book he's reading. Then we come to a little example also of a project I have completed myself a few months ago. This is about the Italian School of Archaeology at Athens, which accepts every year a few students. There is a list of the students which have studied at this institution, starting in 1909 when it was founded. So if I go down, starting from 1910, you can see all the students up to this year. They are more than 400, I have manually taken all of them one by one, and I have created the Wikidata items for them, enriching them of basic biographical data and also of the information that they studied at this school. For example, let's see one of them, Giorgio Levi della Vida, educated at Italian School of Archaeology in Athens, starting from 1910, ending 1910, and the source is the page I have shown you a few seconds ago. So, given that all these information are now inside Wikidata items, we can use the Sparkle queries in order to retrieve some information about them. And let's see some of the most interesting queries, such as this one. So this is the interface for querying Wikidata in the Sparkle languages. In the Sparkle language, of course, Sparkle language is not impossible to learn. However, it is also not possible to speak about it in this occasion. You find a lot of tutorials online. Of course, here, so I'm visualizing it in Italian, but I can switch to English, of course. So here on help, you see a link to this help page, which gives you a lot of information about how to write Sparkle queries, links to other tutorials, and so on. And there is also an interface named Query Builder, which allows you to write simple queries, not knowing Sparkle. So also, if you don't know Sparkle, you can write very simple queries through the Query Builder. But I encourage you to study a bit of Sparkle, and you will be able to write probably most of the queries you need. So let's start this query. This query shows you the birthplaces in blue and the death places in orange of the people who have studied at the Italian School of Archaeology at Athens. Of course, you can show only birth or only death, I think, but it is not working. Okay, it's working a bit. This is due to the fact that in some places they were both born and died. So this generates a bit of confusion, but it is possible to see only one of the two layers. And so you can make statistics, for example, about where the most of them were born or died. Of course, in some of these places, more people were born or died. For example, this is Rome, and in Rome, many of them were born or died, while in other places, such as Grosseto, only one person was born, and in this place, which is Montalcino, one person was born. The same person was born and died. So we can see interesting data from these map visualizations. For example, all of these persons were born or died in Italy, with a very few exceptions. This is interesting. Of course, we should remember that many of these people are still alive, and so fortunately for them, the number of death places is much smaller than the number of birthplaces, and also not all the birthplaces are known. So as we can say, for all the types of queries, these queries are relevant in as much as the data on Wikidata is complete. If you are looking for the birthplaces of Italian archaeologists, you should first assure that the most of Italian archaeologists are present in Wikidata, and that the most of them has the birthplaces. So the completeness of Wikidata's data, of course, is a crucial factor for also the representativeness of the queries you can write and apply to Wikidata's data. You can also have graphs from Wikidata. For example, you can see that most of these persons have archaeologists as occupation. So archaeologist is by far the most common occupation for them. Of course, it is a school of archaeology, and so it is expected in some way. And you can also see that 1/4 of these persons has 16 to 25 external identifiers. So a high number of external identifiers. Another quarter have more than 26 identifiers. Another quarter, a bit less, has 6 to 15 identifiers. And so these other parts represent the people having fewer than 6 identifiers. So we can also say that these people are, let's say, quite known in different databases. Most of them will probably be library catalogs. So we can also have statistics about we can also extract statistics from data in Wikidata, and we can also extract correspondences between Wikidata and other identifiers. In this case, we see for all the people who studied at this school, we see how many of them have a certain identifier. So most of them have VIAF, and also most of them are present in the library catalog of the school. So the school had them as students, and also has in its library works they wrote. And so this is also an interesting fact. And then you have other library catalogs. These are mostly library catalogs which have works they wrote. And so this is another example, I think, another interesting example of what can be achieved if you manage to write into Wikidata about a complete set of items. Let's say all the students of a school in a given period of time, or all the entries which are present in a certain thesaurus, controlled vocabulary, and so on. So if you manage to add to Wikidata all the entries of a given set of things, if you're able to do this task, you can then be able to extract from Wikidata very interesting statistics about this set of of things, of people, of concepts, and so on. So
Camillo, I have a question
now
Camillo?
I can briefly stop for questions and then.
Yes,
Yes.
Camillo, in fact, I have a
Let's
question.
go. Yes, yes.
It's David from Spain who is asking, can you create an authority in Wikidata without having information in Wikipedia?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Wikidata has a much wider, set of criteria about including persons that in most Wikipedias or in all Wikipedias wouldn't be considered notable. So also in the case of the students of this school, most of them aren't present in any Wikipedia, and I think that a good share of them will never be present in any Wikipedia, but they are considered notable for Wikidata. The criteria of notability of Wikidata are stated in this page, which I am now reaching. It is short named as WD 2.N, which stands for Wikidata Notability. It is now loading. So Wikidata Notability. An item is notable if it meets at least one of the three criteria below. One possibility is that the item has a Wikipedia page, so whichever concept having a Wikipedia page is notable for Wikidata. But this is only one possibility. The second possibility is that, and this is the most frequent one, it is an instance of a clearly identifiable conceptual or material entity. The entity must be notable in the sense that it can be described using serious and publicly available references. So, a person which is represented in an authority file, let's say in a VF member, such as GND or BNF and so on, is notable. Of course, in order to make it clear that it is notable, when you create the item, you should also add some identifier that demonstrates that it is notable. If you don't have an identifier at end, but you have, for example, a written book which has information about the subject, you can also use the written book as a source. I will not show it, but it is possible. And the third possibility is a structural need. So it is needed to make statements made in other items more useful. The typical example is that if you have an item for a person and also the item for its grandson, because they were both important, let's say, politicians or philologists and so on. Also, if the father of the second and the son of the first, so the person which is between the two, didn't do in his life anything particularly notable, this person is considered notable because it is useful to make a bridge between the other two persons. And so, for example, it allows you then to generate a genealogical tree as the ones I showed you. So also structural need is a possibility for having a notable item. So an item is notable if it meets at least one of these criteria. So also items that are not present on Wikipedia are notable if they are useful for a structural need and or if they are described by authoritative sources such as authority files, books, also the website of a university, in a scientific article, and so on. Are there other questions?
While they're thinking, I wanted to add that when I met Camillo for the first time, in fact, I had registered to Wikidata and inserted several terms. Some of them were in Wikipedia, others not, but then it was not sufficient just to insert the term and the description, because I was blocked. There was like a sort of automatic message that blocked me, and my new term was for a few days, and then it could not be seen anymore. And in fact, I contacted him because I followed one of his training courses, and he explained me that I had not read very attentively this page, and in fact, it should have been sufficient that I would have had some statements or some other, yes, especially some statements if references were not available, and then in this case the term would have been accepted. Then I see in the chat that Maddalena has some very simple question, and I think that you can open the audio and make them directly.
Hello, Camillo.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us and for these really interesting explanations. Wikidata is such a complex tool, and my questions are very basic, as I am a recent user. I've opened a personal profile a couple of weeks ago, just in order to be prepared for this workshop today. But it's so complex that I didn't really dare to fill in or modify anything. And I have just some curiosities, very simple and basic questions, so forgive me if they are too basic for this workshop. First of all, I didn't get completely what a disambiguation page is, because sometimes I found that an item is already fully described, but you can also find a similar item with the same name, but the page says disambiguation page. So I want to ask you what it means.
So Wikidata was born in order, as I said at the start of the meeting, it was also meant to connect different Wikipedias. So you may have seen that reading Wikipedia, sometimes you find disambiguation pages. They are common to different languages. So a disambiguation page for Domenico Rossi is found in Italian. It is also found in English, and so on. So Wikidata, in order to connect different disambiguation pages, basically has an item in which the item is an instance of, in this case, Wikimedia human name disambiguation page. And the item, basically, it is here only in order to connect between themselves these three pages. It has no other utility. It should not be touched in any way. So it is here only as a service to different Wikipedias, but it has no utility in terms of, let's say, in terms of
understanding
containing information about humans. So all the informations about humans are in items which are instance of human.
But in this case, they bring to different Domenico Rossi. I mean, different people with different works, or it's not the same person. They are different Domenico Rossi.
Yes. So this Wikidata item is meant only to connect between themselves the disambiguation pages of different Wikipedias. So it has only this utility, and for the rest, we can ignore it. The interesting items about Domenico Rossi are all the other ones.
Yeah, okay.
So the general rule, not to make any mistake, is that if I find a disambiguation page and the disambiguation page is empty, I will leave it as it is, empty.
Yes.
I won't touch it. Okay, this is important to know.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then a second question. I was trying to enrich, or at least to check, because I'm working with Maria Teresa on a project on Europeana. We have selected 2,000 images concerning food, and we are trying to enrich them. And so I was curious to see what the items in Wikidata are. And I was intrigued by by some tricky items such as cups or vases or glasses, which are similar but not the same object. So I tried to discover how Wikidata treats these items. And the thing is that sometimes to make the item clearer, you would need a longer description. But I was wondering how long the description shall be, given that Wikipedia instead has a very similar item with a very, very long description. So what is the rule, what is the suggestion you could give to enrich or to describe an item in Wikidata?
So regarding the description, the guideline is this help description. The descriptions have a technical limit of length, which is fixed, as far as I remember, to, it is not written here, but it should be 250 characters. So it could not be longer than this length. Descriptions are usually shorter than this length. So of course, the most important aim of the description is to disambiguate. So to make it clear what the item represents and to disambiguate it from homonym items and from items which could potentially be confused with it. So if we should, for example, if we have two different items for chicken and for the chicken meat, if they are both named chicken, the description should make it clear that, for example, the item about chicken meat is not about, is an example. Or for the humans, it is clear that also we can disambiguate using occupations and birth dates. I think that when the items about concepts are among the most difficult ones, because you should model them also in terms of being a more specific type than the superclass and or the broader type the broader type regarding the subclass. So I think that when you are thinking about a concept, I remember, for example, pepe nero, black pepper. Black pepper is defined as an instance of food ingredient and a subclass of peppercorn. So black pepper is basically a subclass of pepper. And here we have basically a very brief description because it is not ambiguous.
Sure.
So I think that the description should be longer or briefer, also according to how the term is ambiguous, and that it is also very important to note that while a user which is not very expert about Wikidata tends to give a lot of importance to the description. The description is readable for the human, and so it has this importance. But the most important part of Wikidata is its structured nature, so the statements, and particularly when we are describing concepts, the subclass, and the instance. So we should have a very attentive eye to this part of the item, and I think that it is very useful to consult this guideline, which is, I think, quite clear. Of course, it is a difficult matter, but this guideline about basic membership properties is very, very important if you are dealing with concepts. So I suggest you read attentively this guideline.
Would you copy paste the link in the chat box?
Yes, I will also add it to the list of links I was showing. So I can copy it here after editing data guidelines. I will paste this and also the one about descriptions, which is this one, and then I will say. So now it is here.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I wanted to add the last thing because it's 5, and I think that Camillo is very
Thank you, Camillo.
tired.
I can go on. I have no.
Okay.
I have no problem until 8 o'clock.
Okay, so no, David said that to be referenced in Europeana, we need a particular URI. He has in the chat, and you will see that after the https www.wikidata.org/wiki, we must add the word entity / and then the QA. In this way, Europeana dereferences the URI. And so Davide was asking if it has to be done manually. And in fact, we with the Museo aggregator, very often we use this Excel files to aggregate the content, and then it is very easy to automatically rename all the items. Of course, you just say all the first part that arrives to wiki, you change the name plus entity, and so in one just with one action you rename all the items, all the URIs. Yeah, I assume that also if you use XML files, I'm not able, but I'm sure that even if you use XML, there are, yes, you can do it automatically.
I think so.
Yes.
I think so. So I can maybe just say a few words about gadgets, about user gadgets, just a few words. So Wikidata allows you to personalize your interface in order to work more efficiently on items. You can do it basically in 2 ways. One is in the preferences. Of course, you should be a registered user and you should be logged in. So in the preferences, you see many tabs that allow you to personalize different aspects of Wikidata. The most interesting one is gadgets. So in gadgets, you find a lot of gadgets you can enable in order to change a bit your visualization of Wikidata items. Some of them are really useful. As you can see, I have enabled most of them. I have prepared a list of the gadgets I judge very, very useful, and it is in this link, which I now open. It is both in Italian and in English. So in the preferences gadgets, I suggest to turn in these gadgets, and then other gadgets could be enabled through your CommonJS. So your CommonJS is a page that you create. I can open my CommonJS, which is quite full of things. I give you a prepared list of gadgets that you can just copy and paste in your CommonJS. These are gadgets that I judge very, very useful. I can just give you an example of how some of them can work. I prepared it, and it will take a microphone, I think. It will take just a very few minutes. So this is an item which already existed, but it lacked some information. Bogdan Babic. This item says that he's a human, male. He wrote in Croatian. I am visualizing it in Italian, but I can reload it in English, of course. So he wrote in Croatian, and he was a geologist. We have two identifiers and a link to Croatian Wikipedia, which contains a few information, as you can see. So the item as of now lacks the information about when and where he was born and died. Here we have the Croatian Biographical Dictionary. I open it in order to see this information. You see that here we have the information about when he was born and died. So let's copy this information so that I show you how I add them. I go to add statement, place of birth. I enter the string. I check that I am selecting the correct item. This is the correct item, and I publish. Then I copy the next one, the date. I go to add statement, date of birth. I paste. Then I do the same thing for other two times. So the place of death, which is here, place of death, Zagreb, and the date of death, which is here. Then I can also check in VIAF if he is present. So Bogdan Babic, yes. And you can see we have one Bogdan Babic geologist. So this is, I think, quite probably him. If I am not sure, I can check with the works if some of them are in the biographical dictionary. This is not in the biographical dictionary. Grad, this is not in. I think it is anyway quite probable, although it doesn't cite. I think it is quite probable. So let's do it. I add the VIAF ID, and then I reload the item. Oops, I went to another URL. I reload the item, and we can throw one of the gadgets we have enabled. We can extract from VIAF the identifier of the Croatian National Library and add it in this way. Then I use the Croatian Biographical Dictionary, which is here, as a source. So I use this button, which is another of the gadgets I enabled, to copy this as reference. Then it becomes green, as you have seen. I go up and I paste it as reference on geologist, on Zagreb, on the death date, the birthplace, and the birth date. As you can see, it becomes red, and I get a message that confirms that it was added. And then I reload the item, and I can see that the references were successfully added, and also the identifier of the Croatian National Library was imported from VIAF. And then I can finally go up and add in English a description, Croatian geologist, potentially also with the dates. And this item was improved also in a much easier way than a normal user would do, thanks to some of the gadgets I have enabled, which especially allowed me to extract identifiers from VIAF and to use a specific identifier as reference for some statements. So this was the example I had prepared.
Okay, Camillo, I have a question from
Yes.
Eric from Belgium, Kikirpa.
Of course.
Is it possible to have multiple entries in VIAF for the same person? Any idea?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, any idea how to work with this?
So it would be good if VIAF responded to reports, which doesn't always happen. Probably also because the clustering happens mainly or only on the basis of automated mechanisms. So this is in fact a problem. The only sure thing that I can say is that empirically we can say that adding all the clusters regarding a person to Wikidata means that after some months, usually VIAF merges most of them, which is probably based on Wikidata. I also have some queries demonstrating that. I can maybe show one of them. So my suggestion is that you add to Wikidata all the clusters related to this person, and this will probably help VIAF merging most of them. And I don't have other suggestions. Unfortunately, the situation is not the best possible one. Now, if I find the query where I have saved it, I can also show, okay, decrease of the number of VIAFs thanks to Wikidata. So let's show briefly this query. This is a query regarding the students of the Italian School of Archaeology in Athens, about which we have spoken a little before. So let's have this one. This item about Giuliana Riccioni had 5 VIAF clusters, and they have been all merged into one. Let's see. So here we had 5 VIAF clusters. I will open all of them, and you will see that I have. Let's retry. You will see that all of them are in fact one. You can also see it through this gadget. So if you hover on them through this gadget, you see that they have all been redirected. And from the page history, you see that I added them on the 13th of April 2021, and by the 18th of July, so in 2 and something months, they had been redirected. It doesn't happen always, but it is demonstrable that in many cases it happens. So I think the best way we have to help VIAF merging duplicate clusters is this. The most problematic case is when a single VIAF cluster conflates 2 persons, and these cases are very bad, and we don't still have an efficient way to deal with them. Fortunately, these cases are rarer, much rarer than the cases of duplicate clusters, and we have a more or less good way to deal with duplicate clusters.
Okay. So I think that if there are no other questions, I think that this training workshop has
And
been
I can add that I wrote with two other very good guys an article about Wikidata and VIAF, and you can find it here. Beyond VIAF, Wikidata is a complementary tool for authority control and libraries. It is in open access.
Okay, you can put the link in
course.
the chat. Thank you. And I was saying that I think this training workshop was really very high level, and you are very clear in exposing a difficult matter. And I am sure that even if our audience was limited, I'm sure that all of us will become serious Wikidatian. How do you say?
Yes,
Wikidata
Wikidata is
editors.
still not so common. We tend to use Wikidata user, but it should be Wikidatian, yes.
Yeah, okay. So in the next days we will edit the video, make it available, and we will send the link to all the registered people so that you can relook what we already saw this afternoon. It's okay?
Of course.
So thank you very much for having participated, and we will inform you about our next activities in microculture. Okay. Bye bye to everybody.
Bye.
Eccoci.
Eccoci.
Perfetto. E sei stato bravissimo, Camillo.
Grazie.
Sì, infatti, wow, a parte che cioè, un'ora e mezza, anche di più, a parlare di questa cosa, cioè insomma, io sono impressionato, è stato stra-interessante.
Sono
Wow.
abituato, diciamo che ho fatto cioè ormai credo di aver fatto almeno 20 presentazioni in italiano, ma no, penso anche più 30 che 20. In inglese ne ho fatte pochine, ho fatto quelle per appunto per le bibliotecari di Cipro e della Grecia, ma in inglese ne ho fatte relativamente poche, cioè questa sarà stata tipo la quinta, sesta, però
Vabbè, ma te la sei cavata benissimo.